bad enough with a microphone.
Really? I think you look like $1 million.
Well, thank you
The
very
thing
much.
about earphones is they draw attention away from your butt.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody's got ears that big, why would you look at someone's butt?
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And that's the good thing about getting older. You know, the one thing you've sort of passed on, I don't know if you've thought about it, is now you know you won't die young.
That's true.
So see?
It's true. Here's the weird thing. In my brain, I'm 40.
I understand
In my
that completely.
body, in real life, I'm 62. But in my body, I'm about 75. I don't know which one to believe on any given basis, on any given moment.
Welcome to the Pre-Accident Podcast. It's me, Todd Conklin. How are you doing? I hope you're great. That is my wish for you. Greatness, greatness, greatness. Happiness, health, riches, I don't know, whatever else you need. Unlimited M&Ms, Mars bars, chocolate fish. I'm trying to say it like they say in New Zealand. Fush. Chocolate fush. Chocolate fish. Whatever you need to be happy, I hope you got tons of ample amounts of it. That's always where I go with this conversation. Well, the podcast is screaming along, and as I promised, this year was the year with just amazing stuff in it, and I think I've delivered. I don't know how you feel, but it's going to get better today. Next year, just wait. Socks will be blown completely off feet. Boom, there go the socks. Today is an intimate and up-close conversation with my buddy Rob Fisher. So I don't get to spend enough time with Rob Fisher, and I've known Rob since the wee old DOE day, a long time, really, actually a really long time. And I never get to sit down and just chat with him, and that's exactly what today's podcast is all about. It's just a chat. Not a lot of agendas, not really even a topic. We didn't even discuss what we were going to talk about. We just kind of said, yeah, I said, you want to be on a podcast? And he says, it's been too long. And I said, I think I can fix that for you. I know people who can get you on this, baby, if you're interested. It's going to cost you money, but I'll get you on it. And sure enough, I was able to weasel an invitation and get him on. And so that's what you get to enjoy. And they did it for no cost at all. It was amazing. No cost. It's absolutely free. Just the cost of downloading it into your ear holes, which we started talking about the power of headphones at the beginning of this podcast. And so now we're referring to them in the introduction of the conversation. So it'll be fun. It's a great conversation. So far, so good. Bluegrass Festival was remarkable. Travels around the world, remarkable. I'm now pretty much lining up for the series of workshops we're having. I really appreciate whoever it was, and I don't remember who it was, but somebody said, you ought to do accident investigation workshops. And, I used to teach those all the time. And so we tried one, and we're going to do another in November. And it worked great. You were marvelous, and it was a huge part of what happens. It was really super cool to have you be a part of that first one. That made a lot of sense. Let me not kill a lot of time and get you into this. This is Rob Fisher and Todd Conklin having a little conversation about the junk we talk about. So here we go. This is the podcast just for you. Listen up.
So it's been a long time since you've been on the podcast. Tell me what's been happening. How are you doing?
Well, it's interesting. I want to start by saying thanks and how much I follow what's going on. This is a real opportunity to watch real-time growth. We never had that for 25 years.
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right on that.
We never had an opportunity to hear so many people talk about so much from so many different perspectives as we do today.
Yeah.
And what started as something kind of innocuous, I'm going to get on and talk about, I'm going to have a podcast about the way I think, the Toddcast, has now become a way that we can grow what we all think about.
Wow, what a nice thing to say.
Grow our paradigms.
Thank you.
And it's not the safety person, the HP person, the quality person that's trying to cram it in. It's, hey, boss, listen to what's going on out there. I know I'm trying to tell you this, but it's obvious you're not going to listen much to me. But listen to what's going on out there and shift that paradigm just a little bit. and it opens up new discussions.
Yeah,
so I think that was almost an unintended consequence.
Yeah, it certainly was not intended. And at the risk of sounding a little bit like the Benevolent Butt Kissers Club, I think the Robservations, which, first of all, I love that whole title is amazing. It's so funny and clever. But the Robservations. So I'm seeing people using those because they're succinct, they're short, they're high value, and they fit perfectly in a leader schedule. They can go in, kind of swiftly go in and talk about, you have a bunch of them, so whatever topic they choose, and it's kind of bite-sized. And I think, and it is a little bit of a benevolent butt kisser club, but what it does is sort of leads them to the next thing. It leaves them hungry, not satisfied.
Yeah.
So they want to know more, and I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Thank you.
How have you been? I mean, you guys are growing and going, and
I've been good. You get to this age, you start trying to think about your health, and your family starts thinking about legacy and longevity. And as you know,
this is going to be an old man podcast, isn't it? Oh my God, we've turned into old men.
Well, it is a little bit, but
I swear to God, if we talk about bowel movements, I'm out of here. Okay, that's
too bad because I had something really good.
No.
Really, did you just use the term bowel movements and out of here in the same sentence?
I did. Oh no, I'm as bad as I thought I was.
And you said you didn't edit the podcast.
This may not make it. I'll probably not leave this in. So in case you're wondering.
But I remember not too long after you first started. It's been a long time since I've been on the podcast.
You were really early. You were the first, because the first ones I had to call on my friends. Because who else is going to do them? And so you were like the third or fourth podcast.
Yeah, it was early
you were
on.
Super early.
And I remember I was sitting in my truck on the side of the road with one of the very first times I'd been on Bluetooth, this new thing.
Oh, yeah.
And we were a long way apart. So this is the first time we've actually gotten to sit down and interface where we can kind of, play off each other and try to not talk about those things we were just talking about. But I've been good. We've been good. We've, 5 years ago when we did, it was probably almost 5 years ago that we did the first one.
I think it was probably.
And back then we were just starting to think about and put in play the elements of how our personality tendencies see and manage risk. So we were talking about E-colors in human performance and we thought that was the next phase of human performance is an understanding that the very risks that you were talking about that we need to manage, we weren't seeing right. So it's hard to manage something you can't see. Well, I mean, since that time, since our partnership with Equilibria and understanding, we've got over 600,000 data points on how people see and manage risk differently. How different personalities struggle with stopping and seeking out help, and most of us don't struggle with stopping. It's the seeking out help piece that we stop. So all those elements that you talk about and I talk about the way the worker manages that blue line and how they are as managing of risk and capacity as they can possibly be right up to that moment that they're not is an organizational element. It's things organizations have to understand. So we've put the essential leadership cycle into play because one of the things that human performance I think was missing was it was easy for organizations to drift to it's a worker thing, it's worker tools, it's things that the worker needs to know. The reality is the organization develops capacity, not the workers.
I agree completely. And let's talk about that in a moment because I think you hit on something that's been a big part developmentally that people may not know. But initially, I think when we first started doing this work, it was pretty much all directed at we trained workers. We brought workers in. We gave them tools, error reduction tools, or identification of latent condition tools. We gave them all sorts of tools, and we focused on making the worker better at managing the potential to have human error, make mistakes, to fail. I've always thought, and it kind of went that way, that probably the least important group to train is the workforce. They get this. The most important group to train, and the group we weren't spending a lot of time on in the old days, was leadership.
Yeah, because they wouldn't give us the time.
Right, yeah. I don't
So
think it was
our
us.
entry point was the people who were making the mistakes.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's going to go away for a while, that you can tell people you're not going to deal with the last piece of Swiss cheese at all, and you're not going to give them extra individual capacity. But
I agree. I just don't see it. And maybe we disagree on this, which is cool too. I don't see that as the most valuable group to train or to expose to the information.
We're in violent agreement with that.
And then we're, again.
So what we say is they're the last group that needs it, not the first group.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
And by the time it gets to what they need to know, of course we know that because we've established these systems, by the time you get to that piece, the organization is already seeing vast improvements. We say in our gear model that leader knowledge and leader language and behaviors lead everything.
Right.
You get those right, then they can start to engage. Yeah. Then you're going to get change, and that change is always going to be positive. Always. Even if it's the ability to see negative attributes of the way the organization is managing their capacity and resilience, that's positive. By the time you get to the workforce, it's icing on a cake. It is the workers are actually saying, "Hey, WIIFM, what's in it for me?"
Yeah. Which is different than WTF, right?
Exactly.
Okay, just checking in.
Yeah, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot is very different than WIIFM.
They got to blow the patio off.
They do. They do.
It's not a podcast if somebody doesn't run a leaf blower.
That's probably true. I mean, it's not a conference unless somebody works outside.
That's true. So we should probably write that down on a stone tablet.
Yeah, no kidding.
But in your partnership with Equilibria, and your move into sort of consolidating e-colors and human performance, that was really daring and bold.
Oh, thank you.
What was it that gave you the courage? Courage is a better word. The courage to actually take that jump, because. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it was an absence of work on your part. I don't think you needed more to do. I think you really saw it as valuable. How come?
Well, I'm kind of shocked that that it was considered brave or courageous.
Don't you think it was?
Oh, I've never thought of it.
So let me explain why I said that. I think it's super easy. Inertia being what inertia is. So you're one of the best, and I'm not even trying to butter you up, that'll come later, but you're one of the best, you're an expert in human performance and have been for a long time. You're a phenomenal presenter, you're an incredible trainer, you also have depth of knowledge, you can diagnose well, so it would have been pretty easy just to continue to do the same stuff you've always done. I mean, you wouldn't have to work very hard. You don't have to think very hard.
Yeah.
And you can give the same presentation for 25 years and get really good at it. I mean, you change the jokes in a slide or two, but you actually you had to learn a whole bunch of new stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's courageous.
Well, thank you. Again, I'm shocked into trying to really.
You didn't see it as a. So maybe I'll answer all questions for you, so you don't have to answer. Maybe it made so much sense to you, it didn't seem like.
So
a
I have
thing.
always, from the day that I was an operator, and they said, "Hey, you need to learn how to spell HP and read this book, Human Error, and figure out what an operator and a maintenance technician need to know." From this theory. From that moment, I've always looked for the next logical step as a part of the way my personality, my optimism looks at things. That I get to say it, asymptote.
Nice. Good use of that word.
Yep. Are you an engineer? That asymptote was always a vision for me of the next time that we needed to do something drastic. I've always looked at it that way, because an asymptote that kills 67 linemen a year in the U.S.
Right.
as a flat line
Right.
is not an acceptable asymptote to
So,
me.
and what you just said is really important. These are high-performing, very safe organizations that kill
Exactly.
70 linemen a year.
Exactly.
And with pretty great regularity, pretty great predictability. It's not good. But it tells us that our metrics, that what we use to measure success aren't measuring the right things.
Exactly.
I mean, they're measuring things that we think are important, but clearly
And look, let's face facts. They were important in the past. There were things that were important in
Sure.
the past that got us to get people to think differently. Doesn't matter whether it was Heinrich's Pyramid or a whole bunch of things that made people alter their thought a little bit so that we could then interject the thoughts the paradigms that need to be looked at for the future. And so back to the, how did you get the courage to do this? I thought 20 years ago when I certified in Myers-Briggs and I realized that there was one ENFP at our facility. And that was me. And the people that administered it put me off to the side. Then they called me in and said, "We need you in the control room." I said, "Yeah, but there's one of me. How is that going to?" So that's 1 out of 6 crews get this. Yeah, but that's what diversity is. Yeah, but look at everybody else in there, and look at what operator training does to them, and look who passes. And I didn't think I was going to pass, but that was the way it was looked at. So I knew there was a personality element associated with it. So I certified in all of them: Myers-Briggs, Robert Rohn, DISC. Strength Finders, Florence Littauer. And all of these things to me made sense, but all of them were about how we communicate. And I know I don't need letters. They're about other things, but they were more about how we communicate and less about how we see and manage risk.
Oh, absolutely. Well, in fact, absolutely. In fact, I don't think the intent when they created these instruments was to think about risk.
Correct.
Not risk in the way we think about risk
Correct.
for certain. It's interesting to me. It's a question. I find those instruments are really important, not in the discovery of self, but in the discovery of the other. And that's how you told the story. It's not that you were an ENFP. You live in your head. You know what you are. It's the fact that you were able to recognize that the other 5 people weren't ENFPs.
Yeah.
And I think that awareness of other as it relates to risk and really management of controls, barriers, and systems, that's really where that has its most power.
So it's amazing that you would say that. The first step of the essential leadership cycle that we use in our intentional leadership modules is self and team awareness.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Be aware of yourself and what you need. But the reality is you need to be aware of your team.
Yeah, I agree.
I need to know where you stand on what we're about to do that we know has risk. We know it has critical risks. But if I understand that you see risk coming from a different place in the system than I do, that's a power.
Yeah.
Not a detriment. That means we can team up to minimize the probability that we're going to be surprised.
Does the program commitment scare people? Because it seems like a lot to commit to as a company, or is it kind of no big deal?
Well, the strange thing is people have heard HP and HOP so much that, and full disclosure.
Don't you wish we'd have named it something differently?
Yeah.
But we're living in the. I mean,
I'll
I
tell
don't know
you
what to name it.
Here's what scares people now. For us, we have advanced error reduction in organizations, and they think it's a big thing. But for a place of 150 people, you're talking about making a drastic step exponential change in the way you look at things in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And sometimes you never get the opportunity to tell people 4 weeks from now you will be in a very, very different place to produce the outcomes that you want.
Yeah.
And so
God, that's exciting. Do they not believe it at first? I bet they're just like, yeah, sure, whatever.
It's bad enough, Todd, that I don't even tell them anymore.
That's exciting, though.
That in 4 weeks a site of 150 people could drastically change because it scares them away.
Yeah, I agree.
And
it is scary. Change is scary.
Full disclosure, you've got a lot of people out there that are on the HOP and HP train, that it's the longevity that is how they make their money.
Oh, yeah.
And it's never been ours is because there's always a place for trying to stop hurting, maiming, and killing people, and stop equipment damage and stop environmental impact. There's always a place for that. So back to the circling back to the courage question, which I never looked at it that way, is when Chevron put Lewis Sr. and I together to see if there was something.
So that's
there.
how it happened.
Greta Leidecker.
Really?
Yep. Said.
So you guys would not have. That's interesting.
Listen, we didn't know each other from Adam. In fact, Lewis Sr. will tell you this. He told it to a crowd that we co-spoke at a couple of weeks ago. He said, I thought we were doing human performance in equilibria by doing e-colors until I understood how that fits in to real organizational performance and understanding things like skill-based, rule-based technologies and how different people with different personalities actually use different methodologies to shift from system 1 to system 2 thinking. That's magical when you think about it. When you think about us understanding where the neurological science has gone and being able to tie that to different people with different personality tendencies, managing that differently. You teach organizations how to manage that. So for me, it was not only the next logical step, but the next necessary step to keep us from continuing to talk about the same dadgum tools.
Yes.
So if you think about a tool, Stop, Think, Act, and Review, which has been around for years, it's a great tool to get us to a certain point. But the reality is if 50% of the people, the personalities out there, stopping isn't their natural tendency.
Right.
You can't just tell people not to grab something that swings and hope they don't grab something that swings because their instinct's going to... You have to give them a tool to manage that.
Well, you're right. I mean, one of the things that frustrates me is that we ask people to change their behavior by changing their behavior.
Yeah,
that's just crazy talk.
Absolute no sense.
Goofy talk.
And so I think early on, that was where I came at it from. So I knew there was going to I knew we were going to have to go through some roads to get to the point where we could get people to listen. But on the HP journey for companies, I think I shared this with you last night, that people are now saying, well, human performance, human organizational performance can't be done. It's just a group of concepts. That's not what we meant when we said HP isn't a program. Just because it isn't a program doesn't mean you don't need to do anything. I mean, it's the things you do that make the change, not the thought process is first,
right,
and then comes the work.
The philosophical shift, by definition, shifts everything. If you change the question, you'll always get a different answer.
Exactly.
Right, and so,
but that needs to change a behavior.
Right.
First, an organizational behavior. First, a leader behavior. Then, an organizational behavior. Then you can start asking the workers to think differently.
And that thread that comes so naturally to you, that thread is kind of surprising to organizations that are in crisis or in flux. Is they don't realize that it has to start with the leader, and that the leader really is the steward, the coach, the captain of the organizational culture and the organizational outcomes.
And how many times have you and I heard, "Oh, we need to get you in to talk to our leaders"?
Yeah, millions. Or do they know you? Do they know you're saying this? Do they know you're saying this stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And hand them a card and say, have them give me a call. That's all I do is talk to leaders. We have an organization that deploys. We have an organization that is extremely good at how you get this through. Once the leaders have decided they're going to change their paradigm, which is my job, to how do we make this work? What are the hows of human and organizational performance? What are the hows of advanced error reduction organization?
Right.
What are the hows of incident analysis? What are the hows of excellence in procedures and excellence in written guidance? There's a lot of stuff behind that.
Yeah.
But the important thing in the beginning is getting leaders to change their mindset in a way. So we hear a lot about mindset now, and they're talking about mindset like it's a worker thing.
Right.
Well, at what point do you want that to be a learned behavior from a leader?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And what's crazy is that worker mindset is worker mindset. It's not bad or good. It's what they do to do work.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the leadership. And I love how you call it intentional leadership. That word intentional, deliberate is a word I use, deliberate improvement.
Yeah.
That means if it's intentional, it's resourced, it's coached, it's reinforced, it's purposeful, it's strategic. We're intentionally leading this organization. We're not accidentally leading it.
Yeah.
We're intentionally leading this organization towards becoming better.
Yeah.
Right? Towards improvement. And that's pretty valuable.
And thank you for that. And the element of intentionality is something that we have talked about for a couple of years in our partnership with Equilibria. And how we are trying to live what we want people to do. So a little self-serving element here. To be intentional, you need some tools to help with that. Just like you can't ask a worker to be safe, be careful, pay attention, and expect that that's going to be the outcome.
Right.
You can't ask a leader to be intentional without some kind of trigger for intentionality. So, as you know, we shared the other night, I've lost about 60 pounds. And what happened was my wife had started getting worried about my weight and my health. But her personality is that she wasn't going to bring something up that had caused her pain bringing up in the past. Yeah. And so 10 or 15 years ago, she said something about my weight, and she thought that I didn't take it well. So she was going to bring that up again. That's a personality tendency. And I thought, if this gets out of hand, and I'm not the only one that thinks it out of hand, somebody will tell me. So we went all of this time until I was in a pretty bad way. So I blurted out from a accountability and thinking partner standard to our organization during a meeting. I am committing to you guys that I need to be in better health, and I'm going to lose weight. And here's what I'm telling you. If intentionality works, I'll be able to use it to control my health. If it doesn't work, we shouldn't be out there telling other people.
Yeah,
about
exactly.
It.
Don't go out and sell
So
it.
I started wearing a personal intervention wristband, so that when I was, and we travel so much that people will tell you, "Oh man, it's hard to eat right on the road. It's hard to do these things." And yes, it is. If you're only asking yourself to do the right thing at the right time and not using a tool to manage that.
Uh-huh.
So I used personal intervention whenever I was in a Chili's and I wanted to, that's where everybody goes. I would really slow myself down. I'd use that pause button. I'd slow myself down and look on the menu at what I was allowed to eat and how much I was allowed to eat. When people would ask me what I was doing, I would push my play button and tell them, because I thought that from a healthier perspective that would be good. But what I discovered was that the physical attribute of reaching to push, pause, or play is the equivalent of verbalization to a worker in the field. That rewiring of the pathway of the action you're about to take needs to be something physical. It can't be something mental. If it stays in the back of your brain, you're going to default to the system that of what you're comfortable with or you've always done. But when you use some kind of physical action, then that rewiring happens in the moment, and there's a higher probability you're going to recognize the risk of what you're about to do and do something to manage that risk. So that's a long way of saying that we've tested the intentionality thing, not just for workers, but for leaders, and just managing yourself in a way that you can show how this works in life.
Yeah. And
when you look, my HP journey is, if you give people something that works for them at home, they'll bring it to work.
Absolutely.
But if you give them something that you want them or mandate them to do at work, and they don't think it'll work at home,
they don't take it home.
They're not going to take it home, which is where most people get hurt, maimed, and killed.
Yeah. No, it's true.
So if we care about being safe outcomes in general, then we've got to give people something that'll help them where they get hurt, maimed, and killed the most.
Yeah.
So
predict the future. What do you see coming? Because that I think is really interesting. I mean, where does this all go? It's a hard question, I know.
It is. I think that in the future, if we're smart, we start educating people at the middle school level and up, so that when people come out of college, they understand what 50-year-olds are learning in the workplace today. I had a guy approach me yesterday in a parking lot. Said, I've been in the workforce for 39 years. This is the first time in 40 of those that I've been excited about how did I not know this?
Yeah.
So, are we losing people in the STEM process because they don't make it through the STEM, the science, technology, engineering, right, math processes, because people of our kind of extroverted personality don't fit into the mold of what might push out of it. How many amazing things are we missing because the process itself may exclude people of a creative nature, that they're forced to go create without the boundaries of understanding the science behind it. So I think that when we start educating, on the e-colors side, in schools that have put personal intervention in play, bullying has virtually disappeared. The graduation rates are through the roof.
Right.
Absenteeism is at the bottom, because instead of it just being good kid, bad kid, good kid, bad kid, good kid, bad kid, it is teacher and child that can manage their personality tendencies to a better outcome. And so I think that as we work our way backwards, the first step is let's just use safety professionals. Why are we not taking people that are coming out of college in industrial safety, and this is a core part of their curriculum that they understand success and failure?
That's a really good question. I mean, and I think that's changing. I think that the business world is demanding a change, but it's very slow in coming.
Yeah.
We're still teaching really traditional, really linear, sort of non-creative. I hate to say that; it sounds bad, but that I think is really. So I think that's a good observation.
One of the things next 5 years is hopefully people like you and maybe myself and some others will be asked to help develop those curriculums in a way that people start to learn those attributes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then beyond that, I think that the next generation of leaders will be. They won't have to be educated in the paradigm because they will have grown up in this paradigm. And then we can really see how we manage capacity and resiliency with a group of leaders.
I'm pretty impressed with you.
There.
That's a pretty interesting path forward. I'm impressed.
I don't
Thanks
think we
for
have
your
a choice
time,
but
man.
to do it.
You are the best.
I appreciate it.
We're about to get overcome by millions of people.
Can I do one plug?
Yeah, of course.
So
are you talking about your new book?
Oh, that's cold, man. That's cold. But yes, I'll talk about my new book on performance modes that you have begged me to write. If you do want to discover your personality tendencies, you can download the eColors app and go to Discover Your eColors. And when that's done on your cell phone, you can start to see how your tendencies tend to manage and see risk and how you tend to like to communicate. And it's a first step for conversation in your office, in your crew, and in your family of that discovery of how we see and manage risk differently. So it's the eColors app, and that kind of sets the framework.
And you can get it on the App Store.
Any of the App Stores.
Okay, cool.
Thank you very much. We'll do it more often. Can't wait till you come to Charlotte.
Anytime, brother. Charlotte, we're going to do it. It's going to happen. We're going to teach a class, you guys.
We are.
Rob and I are going to teach a class. You should come. Peace.
Thanks, man.
Okay, I went so long. Holy cow. I can't believe it. I went this long. I need to do this quickly. Okay, so learn something new every single day. Have as much fun as you possibly can. And for goodness sakes, thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part. Thanks for subscribing. And be safe. Peace.